The tigress gave her cubs to this man. Then he did something unbelievable. Usually, animals in the wild will try to stay well away from humans out of fear. So when a tigress approached a lone man, he did not expect the unbelievable thing that she would ask of him. Lucas has always been enchanted by the wilderness, a magical realm he loved to explore. Born and raised in a small rural village in Russia, he grew up alongside the magnificent forest that surrounded his home. Throughout his youth, Lucas accompanied his father into the forest, where he learned to hunt, track, and cultivate a deep appreciation for nature's beauty. As he matured, his intimate knowledge of the wilderness and self-reliance naturally led him to pursue a career as a hunter. Skilled in navigating the forest and adept at securing the finest game, Lucas thrived in his role, fully embracing the life he had been taught to love. But Lucas had no idea that his deep love for the wilderness would soon thrust him into an event that would forever change his life. It began like any other day. As the first light of dawn broke, he set off into the forest, eager to get an early start on his hunt. Several customers had requested meat, and his own supplies were running low, motivating him to make the most of the day ahead. So, Lucas entered the forest with the aim of getting a lot of game. As the morning wore on, the sun basked the forest in an ethereal glow that the hunter simply couldn't believe. Once it had reached midday, Lucas decided to take a break for some lunch. He had already managed to hunt a few birds, and he decided to cook one for his lunch. He was in an unfamiliar area of the forest, but Lucas wasn't scared, as he could always follow his tracks back to the village. Ahead of him, the hunter could see a lot of light, which meant that there was a clearing that would be perfect to rest in. But as Lucas entered the small clearing, he never would have expected to find what he did. Standing in the middle of the clearing was a tiger. Lucas froze in fear. The animal had clearly heard the hunter coming, as it was staring directly at him when Lucas emerged from the trees. But despite catching the man off guard, the tiger didn't seem to want to hurt him. In fact, the feline was acting very calmly. Taking the animal's behavior as an opportunity, Lucas quickly raised his gun and leveled it at the beast. Still, the big cat didn't move and simply stared at the hunter. Confused by the tiger's behavior and not wanting to shoot the beautiful creature if it posed no actual threat to him, Lucas slowly lowered his gun and began to creep toward the animal. Seeing the man move towards it, the tiger began to take a few steps back, growling softly in warning. As the animal moved, Lucas noticed that it was clearly female, as her teats were full of milk. This meant that she had some cubs nearby. Another thing that Lucas noticed about the animal was that she was clearly limping. Worried about the tigress's health, the hunter softly called out to her as he got closer. This seemed to calm the animal as she stopped growling and allowed the man to get within a few feet of her. Once Lucas was closer to the big cat, he realized that the tigress wound was much worse than he thought. It looked as if someone had tried to shoot the poor feline, and it had caught her in the back of her leg. However, it wasn't a clean shot, and it had clearly gotten infected to the point that the animal's health was compromised. Upon seeing the horrid state of the wound, Lucas instantly tried to help, but the big cat kept him away with her growls. The animal then did something truly extraordinary. She turned and started to walk away towards the edge of the clearing, but stopped just as she reached the trees. It was at this point that Lucas began to hear tiny little mews and growls. It was the tigress cubs. The adult big cat gently picked one of her babies up from the ground and limped her way back towards Lucas. Once she had reached him, the feline gently set the cub down at the hunter's feet. She then went back to retrieve a second cub and left it right next to the first one. Lucas was incredibly confused and astonished by what was happening. He didn't know what the tigress wanted him to do with her cubs, and he was too afraid of what she might do if he tried to touch them. It was at that moment that the tigress began to walk away from the hunter and her babies. Lucas was shocked and tried to tell the animal to wait. However, the feline merely looked up at Lucas one last time before disappearing into the woods. The hunter was stunned at what had happened. However, he knew that the mama tiger wouldn't leave her babies if she didn't need to, and he feared that the adult feline knew that she didn't have much time left and wanted to make sure that her cubs would survive. Not wanting to leave the two young tigers alone to fend for themselves, Lucas scooped the animals up in his arms and made his way back out of the forest and back to his home. Once safely back in the village, Lucas decided to take the two tiger cubs to the local vet. He wanted to make sure that there was nothing wrong with the babies so that he would be able to raise them as best he could. The vet gave the two young felines a clean bill of health and told Lucas how to look after them, including what to feed them and how often as they grew older. The hunter thanked the vet and took the tigers home, where he followed the vet's advice to the letter. As time went by, the two young cubs, who Lucas named Kelsey and Lincoln, began to grow larger and stronger. At one point, officials from the nearby city's zoo became aware of the two young tigers. They approached Lucas and offered to buy the two cubs from him so that they could become part of the zoo's attractions. However, despite the large amount of money that they were willing to give him, the hunter refused to part with the animals. He believed that he would be betraying the mama tigress who had entrusted her babies to Lucas. Eventually, the time came for the two tigers to be returned to the wild. They had grown into beautiful young adults and knew all of the skills that they would need to survive in the wild by themselves. Lucas was sad to see the animals go, but knew that it was for the best, as the forest was where they belonged. A couple of years later, Lucas was walking through the forest looking for any good game to hunt when he suddenly had the idea to go back to the clearing where he had first found the tigress and her cubs. He hoped that maybe, despite the odds, the two animals that he'd raised would somehow be in the area. Upon getting to the clearing, Lucas noticed that it hadn't changed much, although there seemed to be quite a few odd holes dug in the ground. Thinking nothing of it, the hunter decided to set up his tent and camp in the clearing for the night before heading back to his home the next day. Looking up from his campfire, Lucas spotted a massive grizzly bear emerging from the woods and entering the clearing. The bear immediately locked eyes with the hunter and began charging toward him without hesitation. Realizing he had left his gun in the tent, Lucas had no choice but to leap from his seat. He sprinted into the dense forest, desperately trying to put distance between himself and the charging bear. The massive grizzly relentlessly pursued Lucas, soon cornering the terrified hunter. Just as it seemed Lucas might not survive, two swift streaks of orange and black emerged from the trees, positioning themselves between the bear and him. As Lucas began to relax, he recognized the two figures as Kelsey and Lincoln. The two adult tigers stood protectively in front of Lucas, bravely confronting the angry grizzly. Eventually, the frustrated bear turned and wandered away. Lucas was amazed that the very animals he had raised had come to his rescue in his time of need. After ensuring Lucas was unharmed, the tigers gracefully returned to the forest. Although Lucas knew he would likely never see them again, he was overjoyed to see Kelsey and Lincoln healthy and thriving in their natural environment. What an incredible story! If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.